Hello friends, this is Santanam from Young Officers, and in this video we will continue to talk about history like we did in the last video. So in the last video I remember talking about how history is constructed, because construction of history should be based on proper evidences that we have from many historical sites. And in the last video we looked at how coins can be used as a source for constructing history, because coins give us a lot of clues about what happened in the past. And in this video I would like to focus on one more source called as inscriptions. Now inscriptions are any form of writing made on a hard substance, on a hard material, for example stone. A classical example for inscriptions in India would be Ashokan inscriptions. Now, Ashokan inscriptions or any other inscription made by any kings in India, they also give us a lot of information with regards to historical events that happened in the past. From these inscriptions, by studying these inscriptions, we get to know a lot of information with regards to that time period. Now, whenever history is written down, we use multiple number of sources. Coins are one, inscriptions are one more very important source. Now, what are the different information, different clues given to us by inscriptions in general? We will try to understand. The first set of information that we know is the material which is used. Usually, the inscriptions that we see today, they are either made on stones or on some metallic plates, usually copper plates. So, presence of a particular type of stone and presence of a particular type of metal is what we learn for the first time. So, for example, if you find an archaeological site where there is lots of inscriptions made on one particular type of stone, for example, let's say sandstone. So if they have used sandstone a lot, what is the clue that we get? It means the king, this particular king who made all these inscriptions, he had access to sandstone, which means sandstone was available in his territory. That is the first clue that we get. So by that we get to know the geography of that region, which means sandstone is plentifully available in that region. That is the first one. If it is made up of some metal, for example copper, then also we get to know that the king has ample amount of access to copper. So that's also one information. So the material on which the inscription is made itself is going to give us details about that locality. That is the first information. Then inscriptions give us details like language and script. So in the last video I explained what a language is and what a script is. Language is what we speak. Script is how we write what we speak. So by looking at the different inscriptions, we tend to know what are all the different scripts which were used in India by that particular king at that particular time. And based on the script, we also know what language was spoken by people. So like coins, inscriptions also give details on language and script. In fact, more than coins, inscriptions gives detailed information on languages and script. So that is one more information. The inscriptions also gives us information with regards to who the king is. In many cases, we get to know that a king ruled that particular place, that particular region, only when we study the inscriptions present in that region, because only there it is written the king's name. For example, in many cases, Pallava inscriptions mentioning Narasimhavarman as the king is the reason how we learned that there was a king called as Narasimhavarman. There are other records also, but inscriptions are also one way in which we learnt about Narasimhavarman. But then learning about the king is something that we learn from inscriptions, but we also tend to learn about different officials present in the kingdom in some cases. For example, today we have prime ministers, we have chief ministers, we have ministers at the central government, we have ministers at the state government. So all these are government officials. These government officials are sometimes mentioned in the inscription. How do we know? In Ashokan inscriptions, Ashoka says that people need to follow all the rules and regulations, and if they don't follow, these list of officials, government officials, will punish the people. He also says those people who follow all the rules and regulations, they will be rewarded with this group of rewarded by this group of government officials. So we tend to know who are all the different officials who were present during the time of Ashoka through his own inscriptions. Not only that, he also talks about how punishments were given. So we know how the justice system worked, how punishments were given. So that information also we get from Ashoka's inscriptions. So inscriptions seem to give us so much of detailed information on the time period. Which brings us to the next very fundamental understanding about inscriptions. Inscriptions are rooted to one particular time period only. Meaning, inscriptions talk about whatever that is going on when that inscription was made. For example, in inscriptions they will say, the king is donating this land to this particular group of people. The king is donating this land to this temple. Like that, it is mentioned in the inscription, which means it was written down as this historical event happened. So as the king donates, it is inscribed somewhere, which means it exactly tells when these historical events happened. Coins cannot do this. Coins are used for many years and they will not be able to tell exactly when certain events happened. So that is a problem with coins, but inscriptions will tell that very clearly. Inscriptions also tell about the different reforms taken by the kings. For example, there is one inscription in a place called as Junagadh. It is called as Junagadh rock inscription. You can even Google it if you want and see what it means. Junagadh rock inscriptions. This Junagadh rock inscription talks about a particular water reservoir. It is a small pond, a small lake. This lake was created under the order of Chandragupta Maurya. Chandragupta Maurya, who lived 2300 years back. In later times, that lake, that reservoir, was repaired by his grandson Ashoka, and later on it was repaired once again by one more king called as Rudradaman, who came several hundred years after Ashoka. All these are etched, all these details are etched in one inscription. In just one place we find the three kings mentioned. So that tells that inscription gives us understanding about the different welfare activities taken by the kings, by different kings at different times. So obviously it is going to give us a lot of historical details, inscriptions. Inscriptions also talk to us about many religious policies of the king. For example, if the king is going to patronize Islam, the inscriptions are going to talk about how the king donated land for Muslim clerics, the way how the king donated land for construction of mosques. If the king is a patronizer, he is the one who is a supporter of Hinduism. It means that the inscriptions will talk about how the kings donated land for construction of temples, how they donated land for temple priests. So like that, we tend to know what religion was followed by the king and his people through inscriptions. So certainly inscriptions give us multifaceted information. And one more information, if you think about it, inscription also talks to us about the current social culture, whatever the culture that is practiced by the people. Example, sometimes they give details about the different dances performed by the people. There is one inscription found in Tamil Nadu which talks about the different postures of Bharatanatyam, and we are able to understand that people of this region actually practiced Bharatanatyam through that inscription only. So therefore, a small inscription is capable of giving us so much amount of details, and that's why inscriptions are also very, very important, as it gives us a lot of clues for us to construct history. So this is what we see about inscriptions, and with that we come to the end of the video, and in the next video we will look at some more sources of history and how history is constructed. Thank you.